Good morning, Sense of Things. It's Jeff and Ron here for another update of this week. We are super excited to be here. There is a ton of economic data out, and we're going to cover that, everything from GDP down to housing. Ron's got a pop culture reference for us today. Ron, good morning, bud.
Morning, Jeff. Yep, never a dull moment. We're heading. I can't believe this is the end of Q3 and Sunday is October, but don't blink because things are going to start heating up real soon.
Yeah.
They weren't already heated up, right?
Yeah, they've been heated up. Certainly the last 2 months market-wise have been a complete dump, but it's interesting just to see how reactive the markets are to every piece of information now. You can go one direction one day, one direction the other day.
That's the infamous headline risk, even though most of these headlines are BS and bogus. And okay, that's an interesting fact, but many of these things should not be market movers.
No, of course not. Like I said, in lack of news, so much of this stuff is run off of Twitter, X, or whatever you want to call it now, just headlines. The computers are reacting to headlines, and then they start reacting to each other in a lot of cases.
Yeah, but I think more than anything else, forget about the top 8 stocks in the S&P. It's the bond market that's been truly, I would say, the undercurrent that has now become the current in the market, truly moving things around. And I think the banks, I think a lot of the interest rate sensitive groups out there like REITs, like utilities, things like that are definitely getting depressed. What you want to watch out for is it's okay if the price gets depressed and their yield goes high. What you don't want them to see, what you don't want to see is when they start cutting the dividend. Then it's time to get out of those positions.
Yeah, and especially on REITs, you got to really be very careful and understand what the nature of the REITs are. Some of them will be a combination of a bunch of different, especially REIT funds. It'll be a combination of different things, but you really got to understand what they have undercurrent and underlying. And if they're in apartments, we've got a housing crisis. We don't have enough houses, or we don't have enough housing for people. So that's not so bad, but shopping malls and commercial real estate, that's all a different animal.
Well, I do have a solution to the housing shortage. Because the commercial properties are going to implode, they should convert these commercial buildings into apartment and condo co-ops.
That's pretty much what they're doing in New York, because there's a massive amount of empty buildings there, and that's what they're starting to do is convert these over. And I'm guessing in most of the big cities, you're going to start seeing this too.
Absolutely.
So what do we have on the pop culture side for the day?
I want to revisit something from May 18th. I had to go back to the podcast slides. So this just came out in the last week, and I have a follow-up and a little bit of a history segue to this that I thought would be fun and interesting. So, I don't know if you saw the new article about this.
This was our very first pop culture reference.
Yes, I had to. So after 87 years, there's this big thing that they had to change the Wienermobile name, and they're changing it to the Frankmobile. And there was a little bit of follow-up in this article that I just read about the Wienermobile. And the reason why they did it, they said, was to pay homage to the brand's 100% beef franks and all that other BS. And it's going to be a Franktastic summer. Now, I didn't read a lot of this in the original article because a lot of it was focused around the name change. But I thought this was interesting in the last paragraph for some trivia on political, that Paul Ryan, remember we talked about college students, how they were hired to drive the Wienermobile around? Paul Ryan did that when he was
a Wienermobile driver. That's awesome.
Yes. So after 77 days of being called the Frankmobile, they're now going back to call it the Wienermobile. And I thought to myself, was this the crazy right or left-wing mob coming out that they didn't like the Wienermobile? And then I had to go back in history a little bit, and I thought about it, and I'm like, maybe this was a brilliant marketing strategy. Remember a couple of years ago, IHOP had this whole thing. They're changing it to IHOB because they wanted to start promoting the burgers. So instead of International House of Pancakes, it was International House of Burgers. And then, of course, a month or two later, they went back to IHOP. They just wanted to let you know they were selling burgers. So I'm trying to connect the dots here with the Wienermobile And was this really a marketing thing? So let's go back to 1985. Remember New Coke?
Yep.
And all the backlash, and the executives said, oh my God, we weren't smart enough to see that so many people had the love for the original Coke and the original recipe.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, maybe the marketing people said, if this fails, we could always go back and we could always run it up. And I'm thinking that maybe the Wienermobile took a page out of this. I wanted to get your thoughts on it and see if we can get some comments on this.
I would hope to think that the current crop of advertising executives and marketing people are that bright, but I just don't think so at this point. I think they didn't really think that it was that big of a deal. And I don't think there was anything nefarious with it. And I honestly think in this case, although we made a lot of fun of it, I don't think it was because, it was called a wiener and that's a bad thing and all that. I honestly think that they just were thinking, okay, we want to promote the beef frank, so we're going to go ahead and call it the Frankmobile, because most people don't use the term wiener anymore. But honestly, it's something that it's an American icon at that point. Although I don't think they were smart enough to figure this out, I think they created something for themselves where they became relevant again.
And the other big difference to Oscar Meyer versus Coke, Oscar Meyer had the internet. They got all the social media. They can make things go viral. This thing with Coke went viral, and within less than 3 months, they had to get rid of it. And also, if you remember the whole Cola Wars, Pepsi and Coke.
Yep.
After they went back to the original recipe, Coke soared past Pepsi.
Oh yeah, because basically Pepsi was making some inroads with them, and so they decided to create a new Coke was basically just a copy of Pepsi, which was
higher sugar content.
Yeah. So for people that like the original classic Coke, it's okay. I don't like Pepsi. I will literally, if I go to a restaurant and I say I want a Diet Coke and they say, we only have Pepsi, I will drink iced tea instead of drinking. I don't like Pepsi. Nothing wrong with that. Everybody has their own unique taste. And so don't try and take something that's been working for many years and try and massively change it because you want to make it similar to your competition. You have to differentiate yourself.
Yeah, I'm a sun-kissed man myself, so
there you go.
And there is no metaphor in that. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
All right, I'll let you do your pop culture. We'll get to our good economic slides.
I don't have any pop culture today.
Oh, no pop. I thought you had an update. No. I know it's not as good as the hamster guy, but what can I tell you?
No, and he's in jail right now, so I'm sure he will be back at some point.
I'm sure he's concocting another one. So.
Well, he's been on this every couple year cycle, so we probably won't see anything from him until 2025 when he goes back out there with he keeps reconstructing the exact same thing, and it's still not working. But this time he had his most successful run. He went 71 miles. At that point.
Hey, I applaud that. You can imagine the effort to go 71 miles.
I know.
Trying to move in the water,
especially
in the ocean.
Coming out into the current too, because you're going out where he was at. He was like in Amelia Island. He was offshore quite a bit.
But here's the interesting thing about that. He did that during hurricane season.
Yeah.
What a schmuck. You got to be kidding me.
They wouldn't have actually found him. He was doing fine. They wouldn't have actually found him, but it was hurricane season. And the Coast Guard was out searching for hurricanes or out looking at hurricanes.
Who knows if he would have gotten in front of it, he could have gotten to where he wanted to a little bit faster.
Yeah, because that actually the hurricane that was out there was coming up behind him. He could have gotten just blasted out into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Could have ended up in
Antarctica.
Yep. Only after about 10 weeks, he might have actually been able to get out across the ocean at that point.
Yeah.
All right, let me share.
Yeah, and then I'll come back to my stuff.
All right, share screen. This should be it. All right, can you see that?
I can.
GDP. So we're kicking off with our economics. I was going through the Econo Day calendar this morning. A lot of economic data out. One of the biggest numbers this week, of course, is GDP. This is what they call the second read. So there's basically 3 reads of the GDP. One of the things we covered on our last show was we looked at the Atlanta Fed versus the New York Fed versus the Salt Lake or St. Louis Fed. they were all over the fence. Atlanta was up in the fours, like 4.69.
St. Louis was negative.
Yeah. And then St. Louis was negative, and New York was, so it was like the three little bears, this one's too hot, this one's too cold, this one's just New York kind of won it by being just right. And their consensus was around 2.3, which was the consensus across the board. Came in at 2.1 this morning. So it's significantly on the bottom end of consensus range. The interesting thing that I'm looking at, and I wasn't able to gather this info, so I'll share that next week, is what did they revise previous quarters at? Because that this is the little weird secret of the Fed, is they go back in and they start revising things back prior. And so are they going to be revising some of the previous GDPs down as a result?
Well, as we spoke about last time,
yeah,
they're still revising the GDP from 2008-9.
Yeah, which makes no sense to me, because what's the point at that point? But we know it was terrible.
Yeah, it was bad.
Corporate profits,
so it was just a little bit worse than we thought.
Yeah, just a little worse. Corporate profits, we got year over year again. Prior was negative 9.4. Today was actually negative 7.8. With inventory and consumption adjustments, it was down 4.1 versus a prior 6.2. What I would say is it's just bad continually. Corporate profits have continued to be down. It's just a little less worse than the previous. Durable goods order. This is always the part that I start to look at and say, all right, where are we at from the order side of these durable, long-term, big ticket or bigger ticket items? The prior revised, interestingly enough, they're revising these things down off of the previous ones, down another 5.6 versus 5.2. The consensus on this one was negative 0.3, and it came in positive 0.2, which was in the range, but which you could drive a truck through the range once again. But once again, this is these confusing things where consensus is, okay, this is a negative on durable goods, and then it comes up to be a positive. There's some confusing data is what I would say at this point.
It's definitely diverse. There's no doubt about it. And from month to month and quarter over quarter, it's crazy.
Yeah. Now, I've been watching these Fed manufacturing surveys. Yesterday's was the Dallas Fed manufacturing survey. And prior it was down negative 17.2. It accelerated to negative 18.1. At this point, consensus range was negative 15.7 to negative 10.0. And this one came in at negative 18.1. So that is accelerating. And this we've seen consistently from New York to Richmond to Philly, now Dallas. We should get the Atlanta Fed next week to see. Now, I'm not so confident with the Atlanta Fed because they seem to be all over the place with their numbers, but it's just starting to show that the manufacturing side of things is slowing down pretty significantly.
Yeah. We'll have to check the ISM numbers next month.
Absolutely. Consumer confidence. So consumer confidence consensus was about 105, came in at 103. On the index, 100 is basically the flat number. And so if we go below 100 on this needs to be something to keep our eye on. It's not good. The consumer is what's propping up our economy right now. Yeah. And if they're tapped out and they're not feeling
They've already shown a decrease in retail sales. This is the interesting thing. Through the surveys, they said people are going to spend less on the holidays this year, but Halloween spending is going up.
I don't get it. Yeah. I just don't get it. Maybe it's because they started celebrating or started selling stuff for Halloween in July. So everybody still felt good at that time. But yeah, we're rolling into Christmas time and holidays and not good.
I guess they want to be naughty nurses, but not naughty Santa Clauses.
Apparently not. Then you have bad Santa on top of it.
Of course.
We'll finish this up, my piece of it, with a little bit on the home side of the house, the real estate side. This is one of the areas that I watch because I invest in real estate. Case-Shiller Home Price Index came in a little bit above consensus. Actually, it was outside the consensus range, a little bit higher there. I think it's interesting to see prices continue to stabilize, even though mortgage rates, mortgages are going down. A lot of other things in the real estate side are going down, but prices have held up throughout this. New home sales were significantly below consensus, was basically 700,000. These came in at 675, way at the bottom end of the consensus range, certainly significantly below the prior revised number. And that may be revised up, but it is significantly slowing on the new home sale side, which has really been the place that has been buoying the real estate market up, because a lot of the builders have been doing some interesting things with financing, especially if they control their finance company. They've been able to go in and maybe sell a house for a little bit higher price and then buy down the rate on the mortgage and everything else. And these are starting to slow. Pending home sales down 7.1%. Prior was up positive 0.9. So this is something
all with the 30-year fixed.
30-year fixed, and a lot of these markets are slowing down pretty significantly.
It could hit 8% by Q1 next year.
Yeah, and I think hearing it from my realtor buddies, it has gotten really slow in their world. That is my last slide. I think when we look at all this, what I would say is we're still seeing those undercurrents. And I think what we're starting to see now is the cracks in the consumer and the individual, with interest rates up. With next week, we see people having to start pay their student loans back, with job potentially. I think jobs are still there, but if that starts to crack, I think we're going to see some major cracks in this whole thing. And it's starting to crack, at least in the home side. It's starting to show some cracks at this point.
I really truly think it started last week and it will accelerate into next month to get out of the Q3. I think we will definitely see a pop at the end of this year, but I think we need to trough a little bit. And then after the pop towards the end of the year, maybe a Santa Claus rally, we'll have to see what happens in January, because if some of the early figures start to come in about true holiday sales being significantly lower, meaning the consumer isn't spending, then we could see another down leg in January. But let me share my screen here. Give me one sec.
No worries.
All right, let me know when you see it.
There you go.
So this came out earlier this week. Jamie Dimon was in India working with them on, I don't know if you saw it, but he's going to be trying to sell Indian bonds globally, things like that. But you know what? Out of all the CEOs, you know how much I hate the retail banks, even though Morgan is beyond a retail bank, but they're the largest retail bank. At least Jamie Dimon gives it to you straight, right? He's not sugarcoating anything. And I truly think that as much as he's not sugarcoating it, he's also pulling back a few punches too. And he talks about 7% rates. My favorite thing, and I know we've talked about this, all the idiot pundits that have come on to all the financial shows over the last couple of years. Oh, the terminal rate will be 5%. Yeah, we passed that. We were done in May and April and May with rate hikes. We're done. No, we're not done. What do they know? They don't know. I understand it's opinion based, but give me a break. If we go to 7%, if we're already starting to bend, 7%'s got to be a breaking point. So this is what really pulled back the market earlier this week. Things have stabilized. We're end of week, end of month, end of quarter. So we could see a kind of a leveling off here through tomorrow. But I thought this was interesting. I know we talked about this before. I probably showed this in two other ones, but both of these have ticked up. So very quickly, what the two are. We got the student loan moratorium lifted at the end of this month. They're going to have to start making payments. How much of that group also has credit card balance debt, which we know we've talked about ad nauseum, has already breached 1 trillion. All the banks, the default rate is 2.63%. Take out the top 100 banks. So you're talking medium-sized regionals and small banks, 7.51% in a default rate, highest in over 30 years. If the default rate is that high, I understand interest, penalties, keeps going up. How do they expect to ever collect? Because even if they go to bankruptcy, their liability on this is still there, limited, but still there. how do the banks ever expect the medium-sized banks? At this point, it's just time to cut the credit cards from that group and just say no more, because you're already having a tough time already paying us, and 7.5% have already defaulted. What are your thoughts?
No, I think that, and I think that's the difference this time from years ago is a lot of these in the past, most of these companies or most of these banks were using credit cards. They might have had an arrangement with another bank on their credit cards. And I think over the last probably 5 to 6 years, more and more of these small to mid-sized banks started looking at this as a profit center for themselves and saying, hey, you know what, we can pull this on. What does the future look like? There may be some consolidation. I would bet money you're going to start seeing some of these small regionals and local banks just literally sell off their portfolios at a loss at that point, so that they don't have to deal with the regulators. I think there could be some consolidation going on in that. But
or they'll end up just selling the credit card business and the debt and let a bigger bank just deal with it because they got the scale.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. You easily could see that, where they just start selling off to the banks that can, that can absorb these losses and look at it as, hey, we'll buy it at a fire sale. We'll deal with the defaults, but the default rate, when you look at it across our major loan portfolio, is not as big as it would be for a small to mid-sized regional bank.
Yeah.
I think with business defaults going up, with certainly the commercial loan world not looking really, as far as commercial real estate, not looking really good. Now you add on this, I think the mid to small regionals are going to be into some pretty heavy challenges or a lot of headwinds going forward.
Yeah, I agree. No, that's a good point. And because this obviously is a part of this, because everybody on Amazon, for the most part, is using a credit card, or they're using some other type of digital payment. Now, look, I'm not saying Amazon has done everything great and wonderful. They've already proven over time that they've tweaked their algorithms a little bit when people have searched for items. But I thought this was interesting, because why is the FTC going after Amazon and not Walmart? Let me explain. Walmart, at least for 20 years that I could remember, has been 10% of the retail market. 10%. One out of every 10, Walmart has controlled that, and they have basically had complete control over all the suppliers. Procter and Gamble has a second headquarters down the street of the Walmart headquarters in Bentonville, Arkansas. That's how much Procter and Gamble does with Walmart. My point is, Amazon by total sales is less than Walmart. But Amazon has an illegal monopoly. Right now, Amazon and Walmart.com, not the brick and mortar stores, by far, they're doing more e-commerce of goods than probably all the others combined. I don't have the exact numbers. So my whole point is, why aren't they going after Walmart here? There's got to be some other, obviously, political reason why they're not doing it.
And I think the funny part about it is that Walmart's made it, or Amazon's made it so much easier with their purchase of Whole Foods. They basically got on the ground. If you want food delivered to your house, if you want basically sundry goods and all that stuff delivered, boom, you can get it. Somebody made a great point of it the other day. I was watching on the news, and they were talking about, in your former hometown of Philly, Target's closing like 9 stores. CVS is closing like 500 stores nationwide, and it's all because of retail theft at this point in all these big cities. I think it's getting to the point, and you go into some of these. I've been to Philly in the last year. I've been to Seattle in the last year. You go into a CVS in either of those towns, and it's literally, they've got everything locked up in cabinets. Okay, great. Now it's okay, I've got to go find an associate who's probably not the nicest person I've ever dealt with. Some of them are, but they're grumpy because they got to keep going around and doing all this.
Yeah, every employee is a security guard. And here's the funny thing, because we've talked about this a few times. I said to myself, unless they're coming in and targeting less than 750 goods, knowing they're not going to be prosecuted, is it just a grab and go? And I was listening to a couple of interviews, and these thieves are coming in with calculators, and they're going around the store with a wagon, and they're calculating up to 700, up to 740, 725 in the wagons, and just walking out. And then they show the calculator, the security guard are up to the camera. It's under 750. What is going on here that this is even allowed?
Insane.
And people that are working hard are going, why am I working? Why am I working so hard to pay for this? I could go in and take $700 worth of goods without being thrown in jail.
Absolutely. And then they go and turn around and sell it on Facebook Marketplace and make money from it right away.
They're not even allowing this in communist nations. This is insane.
It's not, because I look at it too. I'm like, I was watching there was some surveillance video, and they were showing this guy literally trying to drag out the front door a like 70-inch TV in a box, and he's fighting with the security guards who are trying to take it away from him, and he's just grabbing it and trying to pull it. It's just brazen at this point. And
why even have a security guard?
Some of these cities, if you continue to vote for the idiots that are running some of these cities that are saying, okay, well, we're going to have cashless bail, and we're not going to prosecute people if it's under 7, then you deserve whatever you voted for. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the whole idea is, what is it costing you versus putting that into the court system for more judges and things like that? And so people could feel safer. All right, we beat this to death. All right. So anyway, that was my last slide. I thought it was interesting. I want to see how that pans out with Amazon. I didn't hear all the specifics. The FTC chair, I won't even say her name, has lost every big case that she's tried to bring in the last couple of years. I can't believe she would actually win this one.
I don't see Amazon as a monopoly. Literally, my wife and I have been shopping, I think, and you go to a lot of stores nowadays and they just don't have a whole lot of inventory on the shelves. Our Target just got redone in our area, and we were walking around. She was looking for one or two things that normally she'd be able to find, and they aren't carrying it. And literally, I've got my phone, and I was okay, let's just go on Amazon. Okay, they've got it. Boom, boom, boom. Order it. I have it at my house by the time I get back, virtually, in a lot of cases. You know what? It's all about convenience. And Amazon has my credit card information. They've got my addresses and everything else. So all I have to do is go on, find the item, buy it right away. It's all about convenience. It's not about them monopolizing.
And I will tell you, 3 years ago, there was a couple of things either I couldn't find on Amazon or I thought they were pretty high priced. I went on the Walmart.com and it was cheaper.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are just institutionalized into Amazon. They don't even go to Walmart.com because Walmart.com sells a lot of stuff they don't even put in their stores.
Absolutely.
Because they're just drop shipping.
And they typically have kind of the lower end, what I would consider the lower end items at the stores. That's what they'll have because I think a lot of people that go into the stores are like, I don't want to go online. I don't want to do all this stuff. Or you got a lot of people that tend to pay cash and those type of things. And so they're going in and it's just, okay, I'm going to pay cash here. It's hard for me to do that online. But yeah, I agree with you. So many times I've looked and I try to find something on Amazon, couldn't find it. And then I'll do a Google search and that Google shopping, and Walmart's there to play in a lot of instances.
And I will tell you, it's been a bit forgotten, but you'll see it every now and then because they don't do any more TV commercials. eBay is still a powerhouse.
Yep.
You could still find stuff on there because it's not just an auction site anymore. People have storefronts on there. Yep. I know people that sell a lot of stuff on Amazon, but they also have a storefront on Etsy or with, eBay and other ones. They still do that. eBay is still out there and you can still get great deals on there.
And eBay's shifted. It's really actually more of an e-commerce site now than it is that it's almost a rarity. If you search for, especially anything that's, let's say, a little bit higher end product, I'm buying a computer or something like that, and I look on eBay, it'll be like 7 listings of people that are basically just selling a new or refurbished computer, and they're just selling it for a price, not the auction piece of it. Because people want to transact business and get it done right away. And I will tell you, in the past, I owned an Amazon store and I owned an eBay store. And by the end, we had shifted mostly to being on eBay because it was just so much easier to deal with. The only problem with it was we had to, if we sold anything on the eBay store, I had to ship it. So I was literally like, okay, I had to box all this crap up, go to the post office on Monday. We'd box it up over the weekend, drag it to the post office, where the convenience of Amazon was I could just ship all the crap up to Amazon and they dealt with it. And I would just split.
And that's why Amazon charges a 30+% VIG to basically let it be hands off to you. Other than you marketing,
because I didn't want to be a storage facility for a lot of the stuff that we were selling at the time.
Yep, that's their level of convenience.
Honestly, I think the world is changing, and a lot of these physical stores, between all the problems that we're having with crime and the fact that they just can't store enough in those spaces, they're going to be a showroom for the nicer items or the higher profitability type of things. And a lot of the just sundry goods can easily be purchased through Amazon or Walmart, and they'll deliver within a day in most cases. We were on this podcast and I actually just remembered to order something and popped it into Amazon because I already had it saved in my thing. Not that I wasn't paying attention, but it's one of those things where
I see you drifting off every now and then. It's
I'm on here buying my fuzzy bunny slippers and everything else, but still can keep talking while I'm doing it. But like I said, I think the world is changing, and the FTC trying to go after Amazon for being the convenience store for the world. I
think it's beyond that. Look, they couldn't just bring. I got to look into this a little bit more. I want to know. I have a feeling it has to do with the Prime membership. Yeah, I have a feeling you're locking people in that they can only buy. You have a choice whether you want to buy an item that is a Prime item and not pay shipping or not. I don't know. I got to look into it, but it'll see, because obviously this will be a foundation for a Walmart or anybody else if they win. I just can't imagine them winning, and their batting average stinks. Go after real monopolies. Go after companies that are truly egregious in their activities. Look, nobody does it perfectly, and certainly Amazon. Look, all the crap with Facebook over the years and all the information they collect. Google, I don't know if people know this, but even since day one that Google started, they have stored and tracked every search that everybody has ever done on Google. Amazon does the same thing. That's where they're getting all their business analytics, and they're going to apply AI that to the future, where it'll create your own wish list. It's going to happen.
And honestly, it should happen. I want them to do that, because a lot of times they find things for me that I would have never found in any way, shape, or form. And the way I look at it is, yes, is Amazon perfect? No business is, but it also gives a platform for a massive amount of small businesses.
Yes.
To build a business without having to build all the infrastructure. Yes, Amazon sells things as direct products, and sometimes they take things that somebody else has been doing or one of their sellers is doing, and they copy and then undercut. But in the most cases, the people that you're buying from on Amazon are just small businesses like mine used to be.
And that's how eBay truly got their traction, became the world's largest flea market. Essentially, that's what it was. But people actually were selling new goods on there, non-used goods. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, exactly. And once again, it's an opportunity for people, and I am the champion of people starting a business. My whole company is based around the fact that I'm helping people try and find their freedom. This is a wonderful opportunity where you don't have to build the infrastructure and everything else. So you know what, FTC, leave them alone.
Eventually, they've been a very large
small businesses. Yeah. The only people you're hurting are small businesses in most cases when you start to regulate and go crazy at this. So
that only means our Prime membership fee is going to keep going up.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, because they're going to have to pay for all the legal fees of fighting the stupid government at this
point. Exactly.
Let's just stay out of the business, and you guys just try and find issues that are real issues instead of ones that hit headlines.
I hear you. Until next week, we'll have some more data, and we'll start the new quarter real fresh. We'll give a market outlook, and we'll get in all the nitty gritty.
And hopefully we'll get out of this week, which has just been absolutely ugly and atrocious. So,
So
folks, we'll see you back here next week. We do these shows every Thursday for you. Make sure you keep an eye out for them. Hit that subscribe button. And if you would, we would appreciate it if you'd hit that little up arrow or that up thumb And we're going to announce the next phase of the Sense of Things, which is we are going to begin to produce these podcasts as an actual podcast as well. Whether you want to watch them, whether you want to listen to what we're saying, we'll be doing that here starting next week in the October realm. And we'll be out on all the major podcast channels. So thanks a lot. And we'll see you guys back here the very next time.